considered that our truest identity is that we are not just life, we are the supreme consciousness, which is our idea of divine. We think that we are different. I think that I am Pankaj Saxena, you think that you are you, because we are the one has forgotten its true nature and has become man. And so, our truest identity is the supreme identity. But the trick here is, this is how Sanatana Dharma is. It always caters to all your tendencies. We cannot, in this world, for example, they say that why do you need to worship idols when you can worship them inside? You will need the Vigraha until you come at that level when you do not need the Vigraha. You will need the identity until you reach a stage where you do not need the identity. So at the same time, it caters to all the identities. There is the individual. We have our individual identity. We have our identity of family. Then there is Kutumba. Then all the identities, community, Desh and Dharma. And there is a pyramid of priorities also. That if there is a clash between these two identities, what takes priority? But all of these identities are ensconced within each other. They nourish and nurture each other. And by living, wherever you are born, in whatever circumstances, by living through the identities, it doesn't matter what you are. You might be born as a king, you might be born as a pauper. Just by living through your duty, your responsibilities, you will get absolved of identities, all identities at last. That is the idea. And you will move on the path where there you do not need any identity. At the same time, practicing identity, and by practicing identity through dharma, you reach a stage where you do not need identity. Now, just a little reflection on it. If you see identity through this lens, there is no ultimate clash. There is no violence at a level which we see in all other cultures, where we see that Latin has tried to destroy all other vernacular languages, where when they grow, they say that Latin is just elitist. When linguistic identities harden so much that there are great wars based on these identities. Ours is a culture, ours is a civilization which has prevented it, all of this clash, and institutionalized the harmony, the very basic harmony that is there. We practice identity, and at the same time, we get absolved of it. And that is the idea of all Hindu rituals also. That if you do anything through dharma, artha and kam, if you fulfill artha and kam through dharma, you will be absolved of it. If you follow it by adharma, that desire will keep increasing. Similarly, if you follow your identity with dharma, one day, and there will come a stage where you won't find any need of it. And at one level, there won't be any need of it. But if you follow it through an adharmic idea, there will be clash with all other identities. That is the central idea of culture, about culture and identity of Sanatana Dharma, as I have imperfectly understood it.
When I was listening to a Shastra scholar recently, he advises us, and he said, and he is a Vedanta expert. His entire study is of Viveka Chudamani, of all the great texts of the Shastra tradition. And he is in Maharashtra, and he said, when I heard the folk songs of the Varkari tradition, one person who's just going on the road with just one instrument, he is speaking absolute highest metaphysics of Vedanta. I see no difference between Shankara and what this person on the road is saying. Now think about this wonder. Think about this idea of one entire space, time continuum over whatever your pick is, 5,000, 7,000, 3,000 years, whatever it is. Think about the 2,000 square kilometers by 1,800 square kilometers. What does it take to bind this kind of diversity across that kind of space-time into one nation, one civilization? You and I are inheritors of that civilization. It is not on the basis of a political identity. It is not on the basis of one language. It is not on the basis of a skin color. It is not on the basis of genetics. It is on the basis, this can only happen, and we need to really think about this and wonder, this can only happen, this kind of unity, this kind of oneness can only happen when two conditions are met. That you are simultaneously experiencing and articulating the universal. Because if I have an idea of karma, if I do namaste here, it is decodable only in this geography as a sacred act. You might not know the metaphysics of it. You might not even understand that I am bowing to the divinity in you. This is Purusha, this is Prakriti, this is coming together, this is creation. But culturally, we are all of the same opinion that this is a mark of respect. And that happens when there is an idea of sacred geography. So the first element that this civilization was built on, and the common culture that was built on, was the notion of sacred. And this is critical because all of modernity, whether it is education, technology, culture, public discourse, is pushing you to believe that there is meaninglessness in life. And that, as the inheritors of the great sacred civilization of Bharata Varsha, there is no greater disservice that we can do to the world than by succumbing to the idea of meaningless and nihilism. The villagers in Odisha did not. But I know a lot of us in the urban setups are because we are educated. But their education is about the eternal. It is about the universal that is always true across space and time. But at the same time, if it is universal but not deeply personally accessible, it will not sustain. You and I need to feel the same pain so that when you hear an idea of karma and punarjanma, you have the access to relate to it. If you reach the stage of life where you started questioning your own identity about why am I here? What is the purpose of my birth? Things happen to all of us. Life will intrude, life will teach, it has to take its course. And at those points, if you do not have a fundamental spiritual anchor or a metaphysical understanding that comes to you from your civilization, you basically lose the cradle that can hold you when you fall down. So this idea that India is a political entity, India is just like Nupur said, the idea of diluting culture and relegating it to acts of human compassion and human morality is the most dangerous notion, because we are fallible, we are vulnerable, we are not perfect. And this civilization was built on the deepest yogic metaphysics that understood what is the upside potential you have. That is why you said you're potentially divine. But it also understood and sort of built guardrails for the lowest tendencies that you can have. We just need to look at the news that is coming up from Israel yesterday to understand the kind of debauchery, the kind of demagoguery that can happen when you lose culture, when your metaphysics does not have the truth. So this is a civilization that has given you simultaneously the universal and the personal, and it has built that into rituals, into everyday acts. You don't even need to think about it. The villagers in Odisha did not rationalize or philosophize about what is Atma, what is karma, what is Punarjanma. They are living it. So culture is what we live, but culture is not the shallow act of food, selfie, and food, and language and dress. The deep part of culture comes from the deepest understanding of life, which is based on the truth that you and I share, that we are here for a finite time. We have different stages of our physical existence, and there is something beyond that we naturally aspire to. Right? There is something that we absolutely feel within the voice in our minds, and culture is something that brings all of that voice into an experiential reality. So therefore, anything that obfuscates or kills our culture is basically killing your well-being. It is killing your ability to find that cradle when life will eventually and inevitably get you to the point of despair. This will happen. There is nobody here who is going to come out unscathed. The only thing is whether you have the means when you fall down to get up again, and culture is that light on the path back home.